Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our TGT podcast. The day after Arsenal have obliterated our hopes and dreams of a brand new season with a 2-0 loss to Brentford. Today I'm joined by Sophie from the Highbury squad. How are you doing, Sophie? You well?
I'm doing... Actually, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not going to lie.
No.
I woke up feeling very sad today. So instead, I planted cactus and sunflower seeds this morning here in sunny
very
California.
Niche. That's very niche. Fair enough. Well, do update us as to how they go. A friend of ours bought... I can't remember what. It was the other half's birthday. That was the occasion, and a friend of ours bought us some flowers, and they're like orchids, and there's like about 10 of them, and they decided to pop open today, and they're massive. Like they genuinely take up like half the kitchen.
Nice.
We tend to buy them post seed, if you know what I mean. Like we haven't got time to wait for seeds to germinate.
I got the gloves out today, got it all going on, you know what I mean? So
good stuff. Well,
anything
to take your mind off what obviously has happened yesterday. And I mean, I was gonna kind of open up with a question, just saying, Soph, why did we lose? Is that too vague to ask of a question? Why do you think we lost?
I don't think we were prepared. It felt like Brentford were really prepared for the game and the occasion and the moment, and we weren't. And I think that's the most disappointing thing about it. And I also think that there's been so much narrative about how Arteta needs his own players, his own team. And, you know, in this game, Balogun started, Martinelli started, and obviously he's inherited those players, right? Ben White played, Lokonga played. He made the decision to keep Xhaka and give him a new contract and more money. He decides to play Chambers at right back. He decided Mari's his guy. And so I just don't understand how we were ill prepared to play Brentford, a newly promoted team. And having just seen the Liverpool game, Tom, and how they dismantled Norwich, a newly promoted team, it just made it all that more alarming, in terms of how ill prepared we seem to be for this season. And that wasn't even City, Chelsea, even a Tottenham or an Everton or a Manchester United or Liverpool. It was Brentford.
It's just for me, like I'm as much of an optimistic person as I can be. And I went into the season just thinking, right, okay, it's clean slate. Like, just put everything else aside, forget the malaise of the past, and kind of just focus on what could happen this year. And they didn't let me do that. Like the team didn't let me forget the things we've come to used to knowing, and knowing that we lack a clear kind of route to the goal. We really kind of lack cutting edge in the creative third, and that we're really vulnerable defensively, and we make silly mistakes. And everything that you could kind of stereotype around Arsenal happened in that game. Overawed by the situation, the Brentford crowd, and it was an amazing atmosphere pre-game, and it definitely got them up for it. But yeah, they just very slow, had dominant periods where they had a lot of the ball but didn't do anything with it. And how much is that down to transfers, Soph? Because I still think that the team that we put out, like the quality that's there, is better than the performance. I see a lot of tweets and a lot of people saying like we are under pressure, and I agree that we could do more in the window, but I still feel like what was there, even without Aubameyang and Lacazette, was enough to show more of a performance than we saw yesterday.
Tom, isn't it funny how people have been screaming that we can't score goals, and Oba and Laka are letting the team down in some ways, and then they don't play, and then everyone's narrative is, oh my gosh, we're just garbage without Oba and Laka. It's crazy. The point is the manager needs to have the team ready, no matter who is available, right? And on paper, you're 100% correct. Are you telling me Brentford's team on paper is better than ours? It's not.
No,
it's absolutely not. But
we talked about Sergio Canos on your show, and I remember saying I'm really worried about him.
Do you remember? You did. Yeah. You absolutely brought that up. And then the other thing too is now people are just kind of they're taking the mickey out of us. Ivan Toney's tweet at the end of that was a nice kick about.
Yeah,
I was livid. And I'm like, where is the
response?
absolutely. And to me, it just felt like we've got a decent team. You've got Tierney at left back. You've got Ben White. He's not bad. You've got Lokonga, who's been, I think, and can be a star. You've got supposedly one of the better players of the Euros in Xhaka in midfield, right? You've got Pepe. Balogun's a rising star. But the thing that really irritates me the most is people going at Balogun and saying he's not worth it, or he's useless, or going after Martinelli. Are you serious? Those players were set up to fail yesterday. How many chances did Balogun have, Tom? How many chances, clear-cut chances, was he given? How much interplay was there?
That one that was arguably. I didn't think it was a penalty. I don't think it was enough for a penalty. But he had that one, and I think a more experienced player maybe takes a better touch and keeps it a close control as they spin. But that, to get one chance in that game as the main striker of Arsenal Football Club is a joke.
Right. And I'm not. I've just seen someone in chat saying Ben White is Taib. Ben White's not world class. No one's saying he's world class.
No,
he's 50 million because British players are so much more expensive than any other players. Like, don't kill players before they've even been given a chance. And who are you partnering Ben White with? Ben White's game is going to be so much better suited to having Gabriel next to him. We know this. Mari is so slow. And I thought his awareness and positioning when I saw him play last season was really good. He reminded me of Mertesacker a little bit in the fact that he's a snail, but his prowess, his mind, his football mind is really smart. Yeah. And I've been screaming that we're never going to get anywhere if Chambers is our right back. 7 years at the club, 2 loans. How many loans? Come on now. And then the other thing, Tom, and I don't know if you want to go there yet or not, and you can stop me, because you want to build a new Arsenal and a new identity and a new team going forward. And I've defended Xhaka a lot. And I've stood by Xhaka and said that in this team, he's actually one of the better players, right? But to make him captain, firstly, to give him an improved contract.
I don't know who else bar Tierney you pick, though. That's I don't know who you pick.
But he should have picked Tierney. He should have said, "This is my guy. This is the new season. This is my guy. This is my captain." And he picks Xhaka, and then he double downs on it in the pre-match conference and says he's the epitome of what Arsenal Football Club represents and what players do.
What player that wanted to leave, that wanted to go, that was saying
flirting with Mourinho all summer on Instagram. It's just there's so much disconnect and inconsistency in his rhetoric and how he manages and how he treats certain players versus what he does with others. It's a problem.
I mean, last night, to kind of give some kind of the social response, is that TGT, as you know, is quite positive, and I'd be as optimistic as I can. And last season spent a lot of time kind of defending Arteta, and so I think, as you would expect, people who aligned with that opinion subscribe to the channel and watch the channel and tune in. And last night, I think I had about 4 different comments on the video saying, "Tom, you've changed," in short, and I'm unsubscribing. And that was I've kind of reacted in 2 ways. For the first comment, it was a bit like, it's one person, was it matter? And generally, I don't mind if people want to unsubscribe, but when it is more, it makes me worry about kind of how I was last season. It doesn't make me think I'm doing anything wrong. It makes me feel like that I was maybe had the wool pulled over my eyes as to how kind of collective maybe the community is, and kind of on the side of that spectrum that was very kind of, be positive in that. And I hadn't experienced that side of that edge of that side of the fan base, if you know what I mean. And that was a real reality hit for me last night, seeing people not just like unsubscribing, and it wasn't like there was obviously people still subscribed and were new and whatever, and it wasn't a thing that tips the balance or anything, but it was enough that you would notice. And it was strange to feel that edge, maybe an edge that from coming from your perspective, who was very critical of Arteta last season at times. I'm sure you got a lot of criticism from supporters saying you need to back the coach, etc. It was a real reality check for me. And it is a strange kind of position to be in.
Why can't you change your mind based on what you see? Lee Judges has talked
Yeah,
about this on
yeah.
our show. You know,
Mm.
why can't you? You know, our role in what we do is to discuss what we see, and you have to be honest about what you see.
Mm.
And last season, there were glimpses, especially from February onwards, where you could maybe see, okay, if he can duplicate what he's doing at the back in
Mm.
midfield and the front, then maybe this guy can get it right, right? Why can't like I've been critical of him, but I've praised him too. So then you're a flip flopper. No, it's an opinion
Yeah,
based on what you see.
yeah.
Okay. And you know, just like people saying, well, Ober and Lacazette, why aren't you killing them and saying, why is it Arteta's fault? Where's our two main guys? Well, we've stood up for Ober as our captain and wanted him to do well. We've all said that Lacazette is great off the ball and probably a better number 9, and we play better as a team.
Mm.
So you can't win or lose. You have to just be you and not worry about that. And you're being honest, and that's the thing. All you can do is
And
be honest.
what you said about kind of change your mind, we promote that all the time. Like the idea of having your mind changed, about being presented with new kind of evidence to look at, new results, new matches, whatever to analyze. And if it changes your mind, then that's great. And you should be open to that change. So it was a bit of a shock to see people saying that I've been subscribed for that ever so long, and you've changed, and I'm unsubscribed. It's such a
That's so
weird.
harsh. That's
It
really
is.
harsh
Yeah.
because if anything, you and I have had kind of intense discussions last season
Mm.
about Arteta, and I think that they were authentic though, in the sense that I learned a lot from you about the tactical side of it when we were talking about him. And I stopped, and I think on one of your shows actually said you made me stop and think
Mm.
about the potential and what he can bring to the table. And it's only one game, and I know it's just one game, but it just so happens to be one game against a newly promoted team that basically are worth 53 million pounds, and one of our signings in the summer was worth 50 million pounds, and that's not Ben's Whitefall. But there's no way that we should be losing that game in the manner in which we did. Now, Tom, had we played and created chances and missed chances and gave it our all and our heart and soul, one of the things that really upset me was, where's the joy in this team? They
Yeah.
look miserable. They're playing
Yeah.
football for a living.
And I was
And
bored. I was really bored watching it at times. And
yeah,
that's the harshest criticism of Arsenal, I feel, is if you're not entertained and you're bored, that's a real criticism of the team.
this was damning in so many ways.
Mm.
And I don't care if we come out and we beat Chelsea. Okay, fine. But are we going to beat Villa? Are we going to beat Wolves? Are we going to beat Burnley? Are we going to drop points to Norwich? Like, what kind of team are we going to be? And there's this ongoing theme with Arteta that, you know, he's very arrogant about how he wants to play. And I think as a manager, like if I'm managing people, I manage people differently because they all have different personalities, right?
Yeah.
And I may have a strategy, Tom, but I may have to adapt based on
Mm.
the project, the client, or whatever it is. He doesn't seem to be adaptable. And he certainly doesn't have a plan B. And if his plan B is to have 3 right backs on the bench and bring on a left back when he takes a right back off, we're not Manchester City. We don't have that kind of talent. And I found it exceptionally depressing yesterday. I really did.
It was obviously the worst kind of start, and I know that you said the words, I know it was the first game, but to me, I don't really look at it. I don't look at it as kind of just one game. And it was something I saw a lot of people kind of defending it and saying, look, we can't overreact after one game. But it's not, is it? It's not one game.
No.
Because nothing's changed. Nothing's different from what was before. And you can't. And whilst I was saying earlier, like for me, it was kind of a new season, clean slate. And it was for me. But as soon as I saw a carbon copy of what I'd already seen, it clearly that wasn't the case. And I couldn't treat it as such. If I'd have seen if I'd have seen Arsenal really gun for Brentford, say, dominate in terms of chances, miss some big ones, or had some the goalkeeper would have had an amazing day and saved loads of chances, and then Brentford nicked it with a 1-0 win. I could come to terms with that. Like, I could make peace with that kind of result. But it was the performance and in the way that we lost that was so damning to me. And I know what upsets so many people in the chat box and in our show. I'm just going to go for a couple of super chats briefly because Mr. Joker, there's plenty of you dropping in comments, and appreciate all the kind words you're throwing in as well, guys. Make sure you do give Sophie a follow on Twitter and the Highbury squads as well. The information will be in the description as per. Mr. Joker says, Tom, Arteta's man management was raved about before he took over, yet I've seen none of it so far. Maybe I need to look harder, or we just have the wrong gaffer. Turin says, watching teams like United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Leicester, Everton today makes yesterday's performance even worse. And Sophie, you touched upon that, talking about Liverpool take apart Norwich. We are so far off. What a miserable weekend. It is an uncomfortable discussion, especially with the audience about Arteta at times. And it is an uncomfortable kind of, I don't like talking about the manager in a way in which I'm going, maybe we should move on. I hate talking about it like that. I just don't like. I don't feel like it's very me. I don't like talking about it in that way. But I'm not going to lie to myself. If and it's a big bit. It's not even a big if. It's a real possibility that we don't pick up points in the next 2 games, and then we go into the end of the transfer window and we've picked up no points from those 3. Which I was kind of already reserved to, like losing against Chelsea and City. I wasn't going into the season expecting us to be close to those 2 teams, but I feel like it will not only be the result, but the performance that we show against those teams. And say we get absolutely battered by those 2, which is another possibility. I mean, when do you cut the cord? When do you? I suppose it's 2 questions. When do you cut the cord, and do you expect the club to ever make a decision at the right time?
It's a great question because, look, 19 months, 3 transfer windows. The stat yesterday before this loss, you can add it now to 15. 14 games where we're behind at half time, Tom, and he's won 0 of those games.
Yeah.
These are damning stats. He's breaking all the records for the wrong reason. And for me, I give him until the North London derby. If we're in the bottom half of the table and we lose to Tottenham, yes. Is it 25th? I don't know. 25th, 26th. Yeah.
It's changed to 26th. Yeah.
If we're in the bottom half of the table and we lose to the enemy, I think at that point you have to start asking questions, because here's the problem. If it's not going to improve, we get ourselves into a real pickle. I'm not saying we're going to be in a relegation battle, but we got pretty close last season and we were able to elevate ourselves with some time. So I would give him until that game and see what happens after that. But if you get into that November, mode and we're in that bottom half and he's still there, you start to worry, because we've seen so many times teams that are struggling in December, they very rarely come out of that rut, as the new year kicks in. And that's a really big problem. My issue now is, and I said this to Kevin and he was like, oh, come on. And I said, Kev, I asked him, has he lost the dressing room? He goes, come on. And I think Kevin's mindset is very much of a player that was playing in an era that there were no excuses. Right? There was no room to hide. And something is going on with Aubameyang and Lacazette. Are you telling me they're both, why are they not going to be available for the Chelsea game? That's a week out.
It's weird. It's really, I was going to come on to, I suppose it's a good time to talk about it. Do you think there's more to this than just illness? Like, because the honest guy in me wants to be like, yeah, they're in bed with a thermometer out their mouths like a cartoon, but I just can't. I can't think that it's just too coincidental. And annoyingly, already kind of there's accounts that have got a reasonable following that have started to make up stuff, which is spreading, unfortunately, and infecting the opinions of those. Not to say that what they're saying isn't true, but what they're saying is they're saying stuff that they don't know, and that does obviously generate a problem. Do you think they're
either being protected because they went out and something happened and they've both got COVID and they don't want to make a big deal out of it? Again, that is pure speculation. But the fact that they're both ill at the same time and the club can't give it, if you want to eliminate the speculation, then just tell us what's going on. Be transparent. You know,
episode 1's going to be good, isn't it? Episode 1's
maybe
going to be great. It's going to be better than Love Island this year. More drama than Love Island.
I mean, All or Nothing are getting their money's worth, and we're only one game in, and there's 37 to go, Tom, which is alarming in itself. I will say something, and I want everyone to take this with a grain of salt, because sources are sources, but I've heard pretty good source that there's some unhappiness about Arteta's arrogance.
Right.
And whether that's true or not, for me, I see enough evidence to maybe ask questions about that. I.e., you're a school teacher, Tom, right? You were a school teacher.
Well, yeah.
You gave it all up.
It's flashbacks. I'm getting it all back.
But when you had a student that was challenged, you didn't turn your back on that student. You did what you could as a teacher to help that student be the best they could. You took their weaknesses and made, hopefully, what you could to turn them into strengths. Unfortunately, Arteta, when there's a problematic player, he turns his back on them completely. Now, I'm not saying Guendouzi should have stayed at Arsenal, but he was a hothead and he acted and behaved like a punk against Brighton, right? But there was no room for him to try and put his arm around Guendouzi and say to him, you know what, son, you can't behave like that. You're in a privileged position. You play for the Arsenal Football Club. Get your together. He was ostracized, sent away immediately. David Hillier mentioned on our show the other day about Joe Willock, and that he had heard that maybe he's like cocky or whatever. And then I'm not saying Joe should have stayed. I've always said we should maximize our opportunity and sell him, right? But how is he managing the Joe Willocks of the world, the Reece Nelsons? You know, Aubameyang being benched for the North London derby, I completely agreed with that. But how then did he manage bringing Aubameyang back in and saying to him, look, you're still my guy, you're my captain? You know, the man management side of things, the evidence that you see. And then he'll back Ceballos for making mistakes in the Europa League and continues to choose him. He gives Xhaka another contract, makes him captain again, and then sells us on the fact that he's the face of the team. Willian is awful, and he picks him over and over and over again and gives him chances. Bellerin the same. Mustafi and Kolasinac even earlier on in his Arsenal tenure. There's a lot of stuff about him. And here's what I've said on our show. He's young too. I think Arteta's about to turn 40. He's a young guy. And I think he's letting his dude side overtake his manager side. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that sprinkled over the last 19 months since he's been Arsenal manager.
If I come from kind of a sympathetic kind of perspective, like I understand the need for arrogance at times, especially in the world of football. Like the top footballers in the world. Thierry Henry is arguably one of the most arrogant men on the planet, and it's what got him to that level, is being that confident in himself and knowing how good he is. The thing is, from a managerial point of view, is that you need to find balance with ego and with authority. And if you come across to your group, and it's ironically using another teacher analogy, is if you go in with that kind of iron fist, you will lose the group. You will lose. They will not want to work for you. They will not want to back you and, you know, sing your praises as someone that's helped them. And I feel like Arteta is in a situation where he knew as a young guy, and not only that, but as a former player that would have had players in that dressing room that he played with. I mean, Callum Chambers, I know, was one of them. Rob Holding, I think, too. And not that those are the most outspoken as what we're aware of, but just the psychological knowledge that those players are there that you have shared the shirt with. I think he went into that knowing that he had to go in hard. The non-negotiables are what he spoke about in the first ever press conference that he did. The first interviews was all about the non-negotiables, what he was expecting. And I think that we loved that when we heard that. Let's be real. We all loved the idea 100%. Of someone coming in with an iron fist and saying, look, we're not going to accept mediocrity. We're not going to accept this. But the problem has always been that he's either not followed through on some of those, like the Willian situation, the Bellerin situation, and the Xhaka situation. He's not followed through on some of them when he has done for players like Guendouzi or Saliba and these types. That's been a problem. But also, I think he's gone in too heavy, and I think that there are players like Aubameyang and like Lacazette and other senior members of the squad, and probably one of the reasons why Granit Xhaka was open to leaving this summer, and he clearly was, is because Arteta's gone in way too hard. Maybe he's a very closed book. It's my way or the highway. There's no negotiation. There's no I use the word malleable all the time, but it is that word. There's no bending his will whatsoever. And maybe that is very much why we're seeing a struggle. I don't think he's lost the dressing room. I see that kind of bad. I don't think he's done that, because actually what I'm seeing on the pitch is clearly what he's trying to implement. It's this system of using the wide areas. I think the players that he's selecting are still actually very much carrying out what he wants. It's just what he wants is not working, and that's the issue for me.
If that's how he's going to want to play and he wants those wide areas, we definitely, a right back becomes one of the most fundamental, most important positions that we have to make happen before the window closes. And maybe we'll play more down the middle if Thomas Partey is fit. So maybe he's adapting, but we've seen it. It's always send the ball to Tierney. Well, we have another issue, crossing the ball into the box. Who's on the end of it? We haven't really addressed that kind of play since Giroud left. And I know Giroud wasn't very popular, but for me, he was very underappreciated. Hence why maybe we're in the game, well, not in the game, or we're trying to be in the game for Tammy Abraham. There's if you're going to play a certain way, then you have to have the personnel to do that. And I think sometimes he reverts back to being at Manchester City and thinking that he can do that, but it's square pegs, round holes. We don't have that talent. You can't play ESR as a false nine in a Europa League, match. You can't play Xhaka at left back in the Europa League semi-final. You just can't do those things. We're not equipped to do that. And that's the thing that bothers me the most. And I saw again yesterday, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, it's Tavares that came on, who I know is versatile and can play both sides, right?
Yeah.
But his natural side is to be on the left. But you've got Maitland-Niles and you've got other players. You want to take Chambers on, you bring Tavares on. So it's these decisions. We need to keep it simple. These players cannot accept overcomplication. Give them direct. They need to know players are a creature of habit. They need to know their job every day when they come in. This is your role. This is what you're going to do. We're not that sophisticated in coaching, management, or player-wise right now to be able to do extraordinary things when we're an ordinary team. And that's the thing that really concerns me the most. Just do the basics, i.e. defend the corner and don't let it bounce in front of the 6-yard box for a team to score. And when you keep seeing those things over and over again, Tom, the fundamentals, the basic mistakes, and then he's trying to do all these other things by playing plays out of position, you got to start asking questions about him. I think it's fair. Don't be an idiot and don't be abusive, but yes, be critical and ask questions.
I always, as you know, will, and you do the same thing, we'll base our opinion based upon the evidence, based upon questions that we have to people and what the answers we're given. And when I've said to people that are still very much, are backing him, and fair play, absolute respect if you want to continue to show the faith, and I think we all hope he turns it around, because him turning it around means Arsenal turn things around. It's never a case of we want him to lose so he goes. Never ever that case. But for me, I haven't been able to get an argument from someone. I haven't been able to get a reason from someone to tell me why he should stay. And that's what I'm struggling with. So that's why it hurts so much when people say, look, I'm not going to listen to your opinion anymore because it's because I'm very open to have my mind changed to really get behind and think that he is the right man again, like I felt last season. But I'm yet for someone to tell me a legitimate reason or a good argument to convince me that I should feel that way. Because everything that I'm seeing and all the evidence that I'm seeing on the pitch is telling me to go the other way, to think that the right move would be to have someone else have a go with this group of players, because I think that what we're seeing is not representative of the quality that we have.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me twist it on you, right? If Thomas Partey is fit and he's playing with Lokonga, we still don't know what that partnership looks like in the Premier League, but it could be very good. We know Thomas Partey, when he's at 100%, he's going to be a good player. We missed him yesterday. You could tell we missed him. We were so slow. And of course, we had no penetration down the middle. therefore creating chances, and ESR in his role too makes it harder for him, and he tried to do everything he could in that match, right? If you have Aubameyang and Lacazette, is the result in that match different? Does Arteta do anything different with these players? Is the result different? So the reason why I'm still like not sold on him at all. However, I would like to see with Partey, with Lokonga, Ben White, with Gabriel, Oba maybe down the middle, Saka on one side, Pepe on the other, ESR in that hole. What does that team look like? How does he manage that team? Because that's going to be the closest to our best team, Tom. And if he screws that up with those players, then I think for 100% sure you could say he's not the right man for the job. Now, do I think he is? In my opinion, my humble opinion, I'm not sold. But I think he deserves the opportunity for this season with this window, and it being, you know, his and Edu's, it's their second or his third window, what he could do with that team. What do you think? What do you think about that? Because for me, I'm struggling to find the positives. So for me, that's what I hold on to now. I want to see him do something with those players when they're all fit.
My initial reaction when you were kind of going through the team is that, one, I don't think he would drop Xhaka. I don't think we would see Lokonga Partey unless it was forced, like we
yesterday.
saw with yesterday with obviously Lokonga playing. But also I feel like and ignoring the circumstances of Lacazette and Aubameyang's absence, but had they been available, I feel like both of them would have started with Aubameyang on the left, which I still feel is a waste of his talents, and it just simply doesn't work. And we shouldn't do that. And I think, if anything, I feel like Saka could have started. I'm not saying it was the wrong decision to bench him and to prep, but having Martinelli, who just come back from the Olympics recently, who you would argue is someone who's kind of in the middle between being a winger and a centre forward, and we're not quite sure. But we know that Saka's a winger, right? He's a very good winger and he's a creative wide player. And I feel like the indication of seeing both Martinelli and Balogun start told me anyway that had Lacazette and Aubameyang been available, those two would have started because Saka was still on the bench. So I feel like I don't think Martinelli would have started if Aubameyang was available and Lacazette was available. So when you say to me that, and you ask me, sorry, not say to me because I know it's not necessarily like, but when you pitch the question of if he's given this team, which you and I would agree is our best team, does he deserve the opportunity to have a go with them? Arguably, yes, but I don't think that he would play that team. I don't think he would. And actually, what's interesting, and a lot of people quoted on this yesterday, is the idea of going back to a 3 at the back system and trying that system again. And whilst I think that in the future, Arsenal should, to get back to where they are, go to a 4 at the back system and play the 4-2-3-1. But I also think that we're trying to do stuff with a team that we don't have the metal for. And I think that a 3 at the back system, as shown with our success in the first 6 months that he was here, in the FA Cup specifically, actually you do get a lot from that system at Arsenal. And I think with how good we are and can be in the wide areas, that system allows some fantastic triangles to form, some great overlapping of play, and would really benefit our style. Now, I would love to see Arsenal be successful with a 4 at the back system. I just feel like he's very, very committed and stubborn to trying that system with a group of players that maybe aren't yet ready for that or aren't capable of that.
It's a great point. And, you know, this obsession with playing out the back in modern day football, I just don't understand. I don't understand it, Tom. Maybe you can help me understand it a little bit more, because clearly Leno struggles with it. Excuse me. And you can see that they don't have the confidence in him, and he doesn't have the confidence in his defense. So it's the small details that a Klopp, that a Pepe, and dare I say, don't kill me for it, everyone in chat, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer got right in the league last season a little bit more. And I've always dreamed that he could do what he's done. but we don't have the same personnel as United. They've got a much better squad than us. But when he took over the squad, they weren't great. They were in 14th when I remember everyone calling for his head. He's lost his finals. You know, Arteta won his FA Cup final. But what he's done is he's improved Manchester United in the league to the point where they finished second last season, right? And also, he put his arm around Greenwood, who had been troubled. But he's nurtured him, you know? And I think those are the qualities that Arteta lacks. And I thought he would be... His attention to detail isn't that. It's micromanagement. And that has an opposite effect on people. You and I both know, having been in that universe, being micromanaged, you just don't get the best out of staff. You never do. You know, you've got to let people do their jobs. And it's the mistakes that we keep making that he hasn't fixed either. Yeah. And I think that's the problem. Like, what do you think of his... You know, Solskjaer surrounded himself with some very interesting characters who have Manchester United history in them and some not, right? He's a novice manager, Arteta. Sometimes I want him to have that third eye, you know, like Dean Smith did a really good job of his coaching staff with Villa, I think, last season, you know, and you could tell he's always on his own, Arteta. I mean, I don't know. What do you think of that? Because to me, it feels like he needs someone a little bit more experienced, but I don't think his ego will allow him to do that.
I do think he wants to surround himself with enablers and people that are just going to enact his plan and never kind of question it. It's so important to have people around you that will question your decisions from that level, because you will go on a tyrannic rule. Like that's the way it will go. You will just have people saying, yes, that's a great idea. Yes, let's implement that. Never question whether that's the right decision. And that's something Arsenal have had for a long time is just having too many kind of yes men is the term that is used quite often at the club. And I do feel like
it broke a little bit with Unai. Wenger was like that.
Yeah, it did.
Unai was a little bit different when it came to that, and I agree with
he
you.
Had his. He looked. I mean, you look. Was it Juan Carlos? I think the guy that was his kind of right hand guy, and he was very vocal, clearly. And whilst I think Woods was certainly enacting what Emery wanted, I think still those two have held together for so long, or when they were together for so long, because they worked so well together. And that's the thing with, not only did we have a coach come in that was brand new, he also brought in, if you look at kind of the average age of his coaching staff as well, they're also very inexperienced and young. And I think maybe that all of the kind of decisions that have been made in the executive managerial level have coming from a very inexperienced position to try and get out of a club that needs a very experienced head to get it out of that role. The thing is now is it's a case of and I think we have to talk about this hypothetical situation, which is say that it comes to the point we get to Spurs. So we'll use your analogy of we lose to Spurs and we're in the bottom half of the table and a decision has to be made whether, and I don't think it will be, but say it does be made. The number of options that are out there to come in, that is another worry. Antonio Conte is the big name. I don't think he'd come personally, but
he needs money. And Conte is a Mourinho. He's a Pep. He left Inter Milan because he knew that they were in financial disarray. He knew that they would have to sell Lukaku. He knew that they would have to sell some of their best players, and that's why the rubber met the road for him there. So unless the Cronkies guarantee him in writing with blood on the paper that he'll get a war chest of like 250 million, it's just not going to happen. You know, my biggest fear is if we let Arteta go, which I don't think they will, is that someone like Mertesacker comes in to steady the ship for a while, a lot like when Freddie came in, right?
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern. Because right now, the other concern is that they'll go after somebody like an Eddie Howe, right? Which, is he worse than Arteta? I would say Eddie Howe's a better coach than Arteta. Shoot me, I don't care. There, I said it out loud.
It would make sense. He's a lot more experienced. He's worked in the top level. He kept a club like Bournemouth that never had any right to be in the Premier League for a long, long time. So yeah, like he's a better coach. But the thing is for me is that it's not just getting a better coach is not enough for me. in the next step. That's the problem that we did with Arteta that I look back on now and go, look, Tom, you were so wrong on the Arteta thing. And I remember saying back when Arteta was appointed, saying, look, I think this is a moment where we got nothing to lose. Like we're at the lowest of the low right now. When Emery was gone, we can take a risk. We can try Arteta and see what happens. And I reflect on that opinion now, and I go, no, you were wrong. You were absolutely wrong. And in that moment, Arsenal needed someone that was experienced. Arsenal needed someone that had real kind of clout about them and that could drag that team and get those players galvanized and towards an idea and a system that they knew they could implement. By getting an inexperienced coach in that moment, the risk was far too great. And especially someone that was formerly a player very recently too. It wasn't like just getting an inexperienced bloke. You would say like Eddie Howe is inexperienced at that kind of level in terms of coaching. It wasn't that type of inexperience. It was inexperience in coaching in general. That's the problem with that appointment. So I feel like whilst an Eddie Howe would maybe be a step up in terms of experience in general, if we was to make a change, I would want Arsenal to go down the route of appointing someone that is experienced in regards to improving a team at the top level and getting the best from the players that he has in a system that would still fit with the players that we've currently got.
Yeah. I think with Eddie, the interesting thing is what he did for Bournemouth and at the different levels that he did. And he helped build the infrastructure of that club, the entire style, the culture, everything, right? So he's had to be down in the dirt and build something bottom up. And I feel like we're way past the meltdown point. We're way past the breakdown point, and we've officially hit rock bottom. And Arsenal Football Club need football rehab. But the question is, are the owners, are the people in charge willing to take the 12 steps plus necessary in order for us to get back to where we once were? And in order to do that, you need serious people making very important decisions at every level. And as romantic as it was to get an ex-player who was captain and lifted the FA Cup for us as a manager and player, it was wonderful. And yes, there was some inspirational, aspirational moments about all of that, Tom. And you were right to be excited. Be excited might be a loose word, but it felt. I'm not going to say that out loud.
Those words that should not be uttered. Yes,
but I think we all felt like, wow, this could be cool. We've seen it done before. We've got ex-players coming in and doing a really good job going back to their team. Yeah. But I think with Arteta, it's kind of like, you know, when you stay at the Four Seasons and you get used to it, it's lovely, luxurious.
I don't. You tell me. Okay, I had an afternoon tea in the Ritz. That's as far as I've gone.
Okay, so if you have afternoon tea at the Ritz, but then you've got to go down the street to George's Cafe in Palmer's Green and grab your tea, right? He went from the Ritz to the Caf.
Yeah.
And Manchester City is the Ritz and Arsenal is the Caf. Now, I'm saying that in terms of Premier League form.
Context, yeah.
Not in terms of, we're a bigger club than City. There's no doubt about that. They're a club that's becoming big, who have won a lot more than us lately. And, you know, and I say that with respect, they can't sell out their Champions League game before COVID. I mean, their fan base is nowhere near as us, right? So, but in the modern time of the Premier League, they are it. And I think he's thinking that he can do the things that he saw being done at City, and it's just not possible at the Arsenal.
It isn't. And look, I don't want this to turn into kind of I just lambast the criticisms towards Arteta.
No, and it's not. I think it's kind of constructive versus killing him, right? It's a reality. Yeah.
Look, there is a difference, and I hope you can see the difference in kind of content between kind of, you know, the hyperbolic abuse, let's be real, that some can give the coach. But for me, it is a case for me now of assessing the season and going, what is our target? Our target, I think, has to be top 6 this year. That's what we want to get back into Europe. The ultimate goal is always going to be top 4, absolutely. But the realistic target should be Arsenal trying to get into the top 6. And at what point? I mean, we have a situation where we had last year where we're bottom half of the table by Boxing Day, and we need to turn things around. I don't think that's enough time for a new coach to come in and change things. So it is for me, and it's an important point of discussion, because we can go into against Chelsea and lose that, City and lose that, or even draw those games and be very near, if not at the bottom of the table after 3 matches. And I mean, it's ironic when people go, the worst thing, the best thing that happened today was the fact that, I think, what was it? Who got battered by United? Leeds. Yeah. So we're not bottom anymore. That's the optimism that the fan base has right now. But it's, if we are in a situation where we are again not near our targets after, I think you are right in saying 6 league games after this North London derby, you have to make a choice. You have to make a tough decision, and you have to do what's right for the benefit of the club. It's not like, and people, and I've seen a few comments in the chat saying it is only one game, but it isn't one game of a new manager. It's not one game of like Thomas Tuchel struggled a little bit when he first took charge of Chelsea. Went on to win the Champions League, of course, and get to an FA Cup final. He struggled a little bit.
Won the Super Cup too now.
Exactly. It's not a brand new coach. I'm not in that mindset of going, look, we just need to give them a bit of, like, just see what happens. I've seen what happens. I know where we are. Like, it's all analysed and evaluated now. I just think that we will eventually need to cut that cord.
Tom, this is why, though, if we're looking for silver linings, right? Because we have to find them. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. I actually am not even sure they'll sack him this season.
No, neither do I. That was my hot take on Football London this year. I said, no matter where we are in the table, no matter what the form's like, the performances, we will not sack him.
Yes,
that was the prediction.
We won't.
Yeah.
So the question is, okay, I go back to my comment about if he's got all of his top tier players fit, what does that team look like? Then we can really start throwing darts, right? Allow him that, and then we can take a step back. These players also have to step up and improve. Remember on the Wednesday Wisdom show last week where we had those questions from Kev, and one was Kev saying, Arsenal don't have a divine right to be, up there. No team does, right? But trying to work back towards that is going to be really difficult. So he needs to figure out which players he can trust, which players are going to play for him every single game with their heart and soul. It's really important that he does that, because that will be the making of him or the death of him, right? So I know it's one game. Let's see how we perform in the next few weeks with the players that he really would start. And I think that's the greatest hope that I have. That's what I'm clinging on to.
Yeah, me too. And I think, and we will see it eventually, because as I said before, I don't think whatever the results are, he will still be here. So eventually you would imagine he's going to get access to those top players that we've been waiting to see him use. So I would love to see a Partey Lokonga midfields. I would love to see one of Aubameyang or Lacazette playing striker with Saka and Pepe from the start in the wider areas, and Smith Rowe given that ability to be the creator. We still don't know what's going to happen in regards to any more signings this window. We may end up signing more than just a backup keeper. The backup keeper is the minimum. Whatever happens beyond that, we don't know. The right back situation, I genuinely think the right back situation is deplorable. Like the options to us is dreadful. Like the amount I talked about an example when Reece Nelson. I'm not Reece Nelson's biggest fan. I'm actually quite critical of Reece Nelson. I don't think he's an Arsenal quality player, and I think that he probably should move on for the benefit of his own career, to be honest. But there was a moment where he instinctually on the right hand side of the pitch was under pressure and passed out to an open space on the right hand side of the field, where a right back should have galloped up the field, supported him, and no one was there. Now, on the surface, it may look like Nelson's just passed it to nobody and that's his fault, but it isn't, because instinctually he has done the right thing when under pressure, seen the open space on the right flank when in the attacking third, whilst 2-0 down, and you should be overcommitting at this stage, and no one was there. And that is it's a right back problem. It's a coaching problem. And that for me really did typify the Arsenal that we face right now. And that's, but hopefully maybe some of the questions we're going to get can bring us some reality. I don't think they will. I think it's going to be very much more of the same. I saw there was a super chat there from, I believe it was Strong, who I've unfortunately, because there's so many comments, has scrolled up so far I can't get to it now. But Strong, thank you for the super chat. And I believe his question was something along the lines of me asking for an argument, basically to say what is the argument for Arteta to stay. And he said, well, if you look at the kind of form from the last 6 months of the season, we were second in the form table. is that an argument to say that things could turn around very quickly for us? And it's a fair question.
It is, and I think we can't. You actually answered that brilliantly earlier. And again, yes, he deserves. Like we've seen that, but the thing is, the season starts now. Doesn't start in January or February, and we can't afford to do that again. So he needs to get these players back and fit. And if Oba's staying and Lacazette staying, if they're not, Thomas Partey. I mean, he was hardly injured at Atletico Madrid. He's so injured here. Why? So I just despair, but you have to cannot get off to a terrible start, and we're already off to a terrible start.
Pramod in the chat, thank you so much, mate. He says, my favorite two podcasters. To be honest, I don't have hope that this will turn around. I can see a grave mismatch between Arteta system versus strengths of players. Give me some hope. You've come to the wrong pod. The hope is, as Sophie said earlier on, is that, and it is a small glimmer, is that obviously we weren't at full strength. That is the only thing I can say, is that we are still waiting for players. But I still believe that the team that was out yesterday should have done a lot better.
If I was him, I'd take Maitland-Niles to dinner and say, look, these right backs, they're not doing it for me. You're going to get another chance. You're going to get another chance, mate. So let's make it happen.
I would start him. I think I originally said I would have started Chambers. I think we need more from an offensive sense from the right back. I thought Chambers was the best option defensively, but right now, look, it looks like we're conceding goals even if Chambers starts. So I think I'd rather commit to say, let's have more offensive right back. I just don't trust Bellerin's deliveries. I'm not saying I trust Maitland-Niles, but he's more of an unknown quality to me right now.
He plays better with Pepe. Some of his better games have been with Niles, so hopefully we can make that happen.
Right, we are going to go through as many of your questions as we can. There are quite a few, so apology if we don't get to them. Tom says, what tactical reason could there be to require players to always go for an extra pass instead of taking a shot when there's a potential window for it?
That's a really good question, because there's no...
They're a good bunch, these lot.
Tom, I'd love to see a stat of the teams that take the least amount of shots outside the box or outside the 6-yard area. I mean,
we'd be near the top, if not the top.
Right? Yeah. I had this bet on the show that Thomas Partey would score after the first 3 games, and unfortunately he's injured. He can't do that. That's why sometimes I don't blame a Xhaka when he takes a shot. I really don't. And this has been an argument. Sometimes we just try to play too much instead of taking the shot. I don't understand it. Wenger did that a lot. Less so with Unai, because we scored a lot more goals with Unai. We were terrible defensively, of course. But I don't understand that. I'd like us to have more go.
And Xhaka took a shot, didn't he, at the end of the game yesterday, and it went just wide. And people were like, why are you shooting there? Because no one else is shooting. Like that's the reason. No one else is having a go. Go for it, Xhaka. Actually take a pot. We might nick one back. Yes, I completely agree. Absolutely. Scrolling down, Adam says, is right back now the most important position? I still think backup goalkeeper is so important, because if Leno's gone, and I don't particularly rate Leno massively, but if he goes, we're at Runnison levels. So, but other than backup goalkeeper, would you rate right back now higher than Cam?
I think they're both equally as important. They are. That's not a cop-out on my part. I just think you cannot go into a season and not have a backup for Leno if Runnison's not going to be that guy. And I know the Ajax goalkeeper, that's kind of gone all quiet, and there's issues with him. And then also the other thing that we've got coming up in terms of some of our players, we've got the African Cup of Nations to deal with too. So this window becomes every single time you've got to think about that strategically. Who's on your books? Who have you got? Who's coming in? I mean, those two positions, though, I would say equally, Tom, they're important.
Yeah. I think that probably the attacking midfield ever so slightly edges it just because of quantity of players in the position. We have Smith Rowe and that's it. So whereas
you're right, I'll add that to my list as well. You're right.
It's just
can't create chances, and we can't rely on Smith Rowe. I mean, here we go again, putting all of our eggs in the young player baskets, and God bless them. I just hate to see them being set up to fail.
Yeah, I agree.
No. When Cesc was coming into the team and he was young and he was given all this responsibility, he had all these players around him, these incredible players. What are we doing? We arm them with Socrates and Kolasinac and Mustafi and Xhaka. And
I mean, even Jack Wilshere, around him had at the time Fabregas and Nasri and Van Persie, and you had these guys, and you had a faith that maybe, you know, this kid's going to come through. And unfortunately, injuries put an end to that hope. But we've got, and the problem is now is that you look back at Fabregas was the only real kind of teenager that was given that responsibility. Wilshere was the only real teenager given the responsibility at that stage. Arsenal in 2021 is reliant upon 23 and unders to be the main forces in our team, and that is a problem. Like, it's great to have all these young players, and we look if you I see a few people doing these things that are like Arsenal in 5 years time, like looking at Arsenal in 5 years, and you're like, yeah, sure, when those players are 5 years older, we might be in League Two by then. So
also, Tom, not only that, but who's to say they'll still be there if we haven't built a team around them? They will not stay. Like the Grealishes of the world, eventually they too will want to go off to win something and play Champions League football.
And that's why I think it's right to criticise the signing of Willian. It's right to criticise the signing of David Luiz. It is not right to criticize the age profile in certain contexts, because it is so key to have experience in your team. You look at Liverpool still persisting with Jordan Henderson going to be a really big part of that team moving forwards. Every team has their experienced figureheads in the group, because it is so important to have that, and to have that to provide an example to those youngsters, to guide those youngsters. And I mean, the average age of that team last night must have been 23. It must have been about 23.
Honestly, when I heard the Henderson rumors, I was all in on that.
Really? See, and my naivety made me reluctant, I think.
No, I just think we need that type of leader. Also, look at Milner. How much mileage have Liverpool gotten out of James Milner?
Started today, didn't he?
Yes, he was captain today as well. Yeah, and a versatile player. He can play a couple of very, different positions. I mean,
it's
we're relying on Xhaka again, and we've seen that movie.
The squad building of Arsenal is comical. Like the mindset of how this team's been put together is comical. But I get the idea of wanting to invest in younger age profiles and all that, and I think there is a bit of PTSD from signings like Willian, the Lichtsteiners of this world, that have made people go, no, it's not worth. But if we'd have actually, been a bit smarter with the decisions we made to bring in those players, and also, like, if you think about it, we've had to bring in those players because we couldn't keep hold of those experienced heads that were of quality. Like that, you look back at the kind of the players that left us, your Van Persies, your Cesc Fabregases, your Nasris back then. If we'd have managed to hold on to them back then, they could have been those experienced heads in the team right now for us. And
exactly. And look what Thiago Silva. Everyone was saying, "Oh, they're buying Thiago Silva. He's done." No, he's not. Look what happened at Chelsea.
I judged that. I look back at you. What were you doing, Tom? Like,
look at Cavani. Look what Cavani was able to do last season. And even Zlatan, you could go back to when Zlatan was playing. He's the reason why they won the League Cup that year. We're such snobs sometimes.
Ramsey, we like Ramsey, and the thing is, I still sit here with reluctance to say I'd take him back, because I feel like one of those is you should never go back once they've gone. But if we had kept hold of him, if we had, I just wish we'd kind of not offered the Özil level money, but just offered the bigger contract in that moment. I think we should just, like, if Özil's being reluctant and he's asking for 350 grand a week, let's just say no. If Ramsey wants close to 200 grand a week after winning us 2 FA Cups, I can probably come to terms with that. If he, becomes that stalwart of our midfield and goes into his early 30s in the midfield, being the engine room of that midfield, I could probably come to terms with that. But we didn't. We risked the big money contract on a player that, let's be real, was inconsistent in Mesut Ozil, and look what happened. And when you got, imperative use is Alexis Sanchez, and whilst his career's not particularly gone well since leaving, I don't think it necessarily would have gone that way had his mind been very much on staying with Arsenal towards the end of his career. I think he could have continued on to maybe even been a club legend. You never know. But
everyone, at Arsenal, they wanted everyone to be equal. But we all know in a team, whether it's basketball, Jordan's the superstar, Kobe, LeBron, in a football team. Messi is it. Ronaldo is it. But then you got Lewandowski. He's the guy. You've got 2 or 3 in every single team. Man City, De Bruyne, Sterling, Aguero.
Yeah.
We seem to be like, oh, everyone has to be treated the same. No, pay Sanchez. Make him the superstar of this side. He's the last player we've had that gets you up off your feet when he plays football.
Yeah, it's him and Santi. Like those two were. I mean, Santi left, and then like we didn't have the faith in Santi, which is a real shame because he went off to Villarreal, did brilliantly. I think he got in the La Liga team of the season for Villarreal. He went off. I think he's playing in Saudi Arabia now. Or is he still there, or is he moved on? But anyway, the team that he's playing for, he's absolutely smashed it. So
yeah, totally. And of course, the pace in La Liga is different. The Premier League's different. He couldn't have done it. But the point is that also we never built around that trifecta. We had Sanchez, we had Santi, and we had Ozil. And we never went and got that defensive midfielder. We never really built at the back. That's the problem. We've half-arsed it. One marquee signing every summer. One. And I said weeks ago, I go, Ben White's going to be our marquee signing, our big money signing this summer. And as much as I want him to succeed, it's just not good enough from the owners, the board, Adu, and I mean, is it Arteta's fault on that front? I don't think so. I think he'd spend 300 million if he could.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out in the chat. Someone said he's in Saudi Arabia. Someone else said he's in Qatar. I can't.
I thought he was in Qatar.
There you go. Is he playing for Xavi's team? Is that who he's playing for?
I thought so.
If that is, I think that is Qatar then. So there you go. Anyway, moot point. In terms of kind of, I was trying to think of another player, and Thomas Partey for me, now 28, right? Thomas Partey is the type that you could build around in your midfield if he can just bloody stay fit. That's what we need from him, is him to stay fit. But he's a 28-year-old, right? I think he's got leadership qualities in him. I think he can be that stalwart of the midfield. The thing about Granit Xhaka is, whilst he is 29, I believe, there is just too much animosity around him as a player. He isn't going to be that guy. Whilst I understand the contract situation, I go back and forth with it every day, that whole situation. That I was very reserved. I was aligned to seeing him move on this summer. I'd made my peace with Xhaka moving on. No matter how much I've defended him, I'd made my peace of it, and was expecting us hopefully to bring in a centre midfielder replacement that would just been a breath of fresh air, I suppose, to the midfield. That's seemingly not going to happen, which is, I think, the timing of it with the pandemic and teams just not having the money to pay what we were wanting for him. And I wouldn't have sold him for 9 million quid, which is what Roma were offering. I think that would have been silly, to be honest. But the Partey thing, I love Lokonga. I think he's a real talent. If Lokonga can be a partner for Partey, amazing. That gives you the mobility, that gives you the progression, that gives you the discipline in certain areas. But we know that the centre midfield, whilst we've been lacking in depth of quality, is not the crux of this team. It is the creating of clear goal-scoring opportunities. And whilst I like Martin Ødegaard, I like him, and I think he's a real talent, and I think he's someone that improves us. But again, he's 22. He's another young guy. He's another young player.
Right.
And again, he's someone that will need guidance. And
it feels like something we've seen before now with him, doesn't it? It's underwhelming when the conversations are about Maddison or Auer or all these players.
Sorry, he's 23.
Yeah, and it feels underwhelming. But he didn't get that chance too much, and he got injured. And did we see the best of him? Probably not. No. Is he the answer? Is he going to elevate Arsenal? Is he going to take us to the next level?
That's the question, isn't it? Because he improves us, but I don't think Maddison does either, by the way. And I like Maddison a lot. I don't think Maddison has the impact that people think that he would have.
He's not consistent enough.
No, and he has his injury problems as well. The thing is, there's not, Arsenal don't have the clout right now to attract the player that we're talking about. That's the reality, isn't it? Like, we don't have the clout to attract the player that we need. And that's down to the club making poor decisions in the past, and we have to come to terms with that.
And the problem, Tom, is we've always been able to dangle European football. And even if it was the Europa League, for players, it was a potential path back into the Champions League. We signed Oba, Laka, Partey, Gabriel, Pepe, Tierney without Champions League football. They had a path back to it. And this season, we're seeing the struggle of not having European football. Players want to play in Europe. Top tier players want to play in Europe. And speaking of one player being able to change everything, look no further than Bruno Fernandes for Manchester United.
Please don't. I've got
one
a
player
Lisbon shirt with his name on the back. I love Bruno Fernandes. I hate him now, but I loved Bruno Fernandes.
What a difference one player made to that team. Saved Manchester United. You know why? Because sometimes you just need, this is why it's so important for Thomas Partey to be fit. He could change things for us. The mobility in midfield, the speed. Hopefully, if Arteta allows us to play with speed, Tom, through the middle. But that's the difference. One player can make the difference. It's just got to be the right player. And he was it for United. My goodness, he scored a hat-trick today. He's so annoying when he's exactly the type of player that you find exceptionally annoying when they don't play for you.
Yeah. Him, I remember Diego Costa being that player for Chelsea. I get so frustrated because I hate having Arsenal where they are right now. It's horrible. Because I feel like everyone knows what the problem is. Like I don't say everyone, the majority, I feel we know what the issues are. And that's what's so frustrating is because we identify what's wrong. We know where we're struggling. We know what mistakes we've made. And we are so angry that the people that hold the keys to the castle aren't seeing what we are seeing and what we know to be those problems. And it is horrible.
It's like that relationship that you're in and you try to, but they keep making the same mistake over and over again.
Yeah.
And it just feels that painful. I saw someone in chat write that Bruno helped United win nothing. He helped them get to second in the Premier League and Champions League football. He's not the reason why they lost the Europa League final. I mean, did he have a great game? No.
They got to it.
But they got to it and they finished second. And I tell you something, this season, I fancy United to do something. I really do. Pogba's going to be on fire, I think. I think he'll have one of those player of the year potential type seasons. It's his time.
And they've got Sancho and they've got Varane and
And Greenwood is, to me, Greenwood's better than Rashford even. He's a very special player. Luke Shaw's playing, great football right now. Maguire's evolved a lot.
I feel like they are one right back is I like Wan-Bissaka. I'm not sure he gives them enough going in the final third. But they're scary goods. And them deciding to keep hold of Cavani, bringing in Cavani was a stroke of genius. It had the potential to be a Falcao again. It had that potential, but clearly what we saw at PSG was a player that had amazing movement, arguably the best movement of a striker on the planet. Cavani had. He just didn't have the finishing ability it seemed at the time, and he couldn't take the chances he was getting. But United, especially in those last 6 months, it was everything just pulled together for him.
Would you take Trippier at right back?
You see, I've been so resistant to that idea, and I think it is because of my PTSD from your Willians and your Louise, and the idea that a 31, or he turns 31 next month, would cost about 30 million quid. And obviously, everything that we've talked about makes me go, well, it makes sense. That's it makes sense to go and get Trippier now after everything we've talked about. But I don't know if Trippier is your Henderson, is your Milner, is your Cavani, and they're all different players, different positions. I'm not sure that he is.
No,
I think
they're a different level. They're different level. But I'm thinking about that player that people think, but then they come in and actually, we
don't get linked to those.
No, I mean, I saw someone say, bring Lingard on loan. I mean,
yeah. The thing is, Anthony Michaels here says Max Aarons over Trippier. I'm sorry.
No, he's not.
Trippier is better than Max Aarons. I like Max Aarons. I'd take, and I think that in a team that, and he was my number one pick at the start of the window for right back. I like Max Aarons, and me saying that Trippier is better than him, don't get it misconstrued, is not me saying Max Aarons is bad. That's not what I'm saying. But Trippier is a 30-year-old right back, Premier League experience, now a La Liga winner, England international, helping them get to the final of the Euros and scoring in the semi-finals of the World Cup. Sure, from a free kick, whatever. He was the starting right back. Trippier is better than Max Aarons. That is fact.
Yeah, exactly. And coached by Diego Simeone, and has learned a lot. There's no doubt.
The context around signing either of those, that changes the goalposts, because a young, just near 20 player in Max Aarons has the potential to be better than Trippier. Of what Trippier is now. He has the potential to become better than what Trippier is now. And that's the kind of the context of that situation. So, and I think that people just kind of want to put FIFA ratings next to players and compare them and say, look, who's better than who. It's about it's so much more than just looking at their raw quality, and it's looking at their leadership skills. It's looking at them from a social perspective, what they change in your team. Now, David Luiz's ability in the dressing room was second to none. Like, his leadership qualities were so good. It was just his ability that let him down at times. And so that was the problem.
Real quick, Tom, the difficult thing is why we're all kind of all over the place with, oh yeah, they'd be good. Oh, I'm not sure. Actually, you're right. Maybe not. It's because what is the identity and DNA of this Arsenal team? It's very difficult to kind of say, because for me, there's a lack of that. Like, there's no culture anymore. So when you're recruiting to build something, you have to know what is at the core of your foundation, who you want to be, where you want to go, your identity. And I think that is lacking, which is why I don't blame some Arsenal fans being all over the place when they're thinking about, well, this person would be great, this player would be good. I think that's a real difficult thing for us right now. Not knowing who we are.
We haven't got an identity, do we, at all? Like, we just don't. We don't have a style of play. We don't have. The vision is seemingly to invest in youth and for those guys to come through. But I just think it's so lopsided in terms of youth, and there's no experienced head to lean on. There's no one to guide them. We're just so lacking in that department. The experienced players at the club, your Willians, we desperately want gone. He's not a leader, and that was clearly a massive mistake. Granit Xhaka is just such a controversial figurehead. Thomas Partey can't stay fit. Our older players like Aubameyang and Lacazette are ill right now. So it's a really, at the centre-back area, the most important position for experience on the pitch. Our oldest player in that position is, 27, 26, 26, 27. That's not old enough. It isn't old enough. It's not experienced enough, especially when your starters, which are Gabriel and Wyatt, are 22 and 23. Right. So that is a problem. It's a problem.
We're a group of individuals right now. We're not a team. Towards the end of last season, we became more of a team at the back, definitely not going forward and creating chances. In spots, we're a team, but the consistency is our Achilles heel. That's the biggest thing we got to fix. Start there first. Then you can build competitive football again. Then you can start challenging your so-called rivals, whoever they might be these days. Then you can start thinking about maybe winning a league. But we are very far away from that right now. I would love it if we won the League Cup this year. We haven't won it since '93.
I'd love us to go for one of the cups, both of the cups. I'd love us to have a cup run. If we throw out a team of kids, which is effectively our first team, against West Brom, I'm going to be fuming. I want us to, because that's between the City and the Chelsea game. Like, that's an opportunity to get a win under our belt, if anything, and to propel us into that City game with a little bit of renewed confidence after what we expect probably to be a little bit of another awful performance to encourage against Chelsea. So it's tricky. Anyway, I realise we've gone over our allotted time.
We've been talking for an hour and 13 minutes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow, that went by really quickly.
It did.
Hopefully that's a good thing for everyone. Hope you're not, Hope you're not depressed. Listen, there's always something that listen, with the Arsenal Football Club, don't ever mistake being a bad Premier League team right now for still being a big club. We just need people to do the right things. And if they can do the right things for the club always comes first, not the player. The fans will always be there. And that's all we have to do, is start doing what's in the best interest of the club to just get us back being competitive again. There is hope, but hope isn't a plan, right? So right now we just have to, I dare I say, patience is difficult. But look at some of these teams that have risen. It took Leicester a while to get where they're at. And they've built on their Premier League win. They've won the FA Cup. They won the Charity Shield. Steps. They've built a culture, a new DNA. And unfortunately for us, we fell down and we're building ourselves back up. And that doesn't happen overnight. But Arsenal Football Club is still a big club, Tom.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest, absolutely, and still the biggest in London. Absolutely. It's just, as I said before, it's a really tough time for Arsenal fans right now, and we do need to be very much kind of measured in how we are, and especially how we react. And it's very difficult, and there's a reason why I call it the Raw Reaction Show straight after the game, because it is very raw at the time. But when you are measured, it is about, having a step back, thinking, what are the problems? How do we solve them? What can we do as fans? It is ultimately still getting behind the team. It's not sending abuse to players or sending the manager telling him to get out. If that's how you feel, fair enough. But maybe, keep it to your respectful self. It's going to be a really tough season. Just after one game, we know it's going to be a tough season.
It's harder, Tom, because everyone around us has improved. Back in the day, you could sack a manager in the Premier League and a team could rise again pretty quickly. It's very competitive now. And when everyone around you's improved and you haven't, that makes it harder.
Yeah. Just know, people, that we feel your pain. We know how you're feeling, and we know exactly what that's about. So we appreciate you tuning in and listening to us. And it has been an event from me and Sophie, and I think it's one that we've needed to talk about a lot of stuff that needed to be said after yesterday's result. We hope that you've enjoyed the conversation. If you have, please drop a like. And even if you haven't agreed with everything we've said, please still do drop a like on the video and subscribe, and we will welcome you back as always for the next one. Sophie, a massive thank you to you. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your afternoon where you are. Appreciate your time as always. Do you want to give your fantastic show a plug?
Yeah, just give us a shout at Highbury Squad, guys. If you haven't listened before, check it out and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And it's at Highbury Squad everywhere. And I'm at Soccer Diva on Twitter, but that YouTube channel's pretty good. So give it a listen. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Thank you.
It is really good. And you got a certain little Casey with you as well, which helps. And a very good one.
He's driving everyone mad yesterday. I love it.
Oh, I'd love to have a chat with Kevin, trying to kind of just pick his brain about the positive side, because he is, as we've heard, kind of like from the other day when I was on your show, about kind of looking at it, don't lose your minds at the start. But the thing is I think the reality of the situation, it is worse. It's worse. What's the worst? It's just worse than weird. Worse. I'm a professional writer. What is this? Oh dear. Anyway, we're going to wrap up there. Thanks guys for tuning in. Please subscribe, please like, please tune into the Highbury Squad as well. And we'll be back tomorrow morning for the 8 a.m. show as well. See you later, guys. Have a fantastic evening. And up the Arsenal. Forgot that bit.